Well, I can give you an almost exact date. It was September of 1983. I moved from New York, where I've lived my whole life, aside from 4 years in Boston for college, and I moved to London. And on my first day in London, I went to the pub and I had a pint of beer, and it was a type of beer I'd never seen or even heard of before, which of course I later came to know as real ale or or cask conditioned beer.
Yeah.
And I just completely fell in love with that during the year that I lived there. The beer that I knew at that time was only, thin, yellow, and kind of ranged between acceptable to horrible.
Yeah.
And when I got to England, I found beer that I actually liked. And then I traveled all over Europe for a couple of months after that. And I arrived back with a great interest in beer and no way to get any.
Yeah.
In 1984. So I started making beer at home in order to have some beer. Because it was the only way that you could get beer that had any flavor to it. Well, I think that the main reason for our success as Brooklyn Brewery is that we make the beers that we want to drink. We don't we don't ask people oh, what would you like to see, what are the trends or whatever else.
Yeah.
We make the beers that we want to drink, and we've done a lot of education, as other breweries have, to bring the public along with us. And so, as the public has grown to love beer rather than simply tolerate it, we've grown along with that. I do think that we have our own style. We have our own, overall outlook, which tends to be all about sort of balance, elegance, structure, but also boldness of flavor. So we don't make anything wimpy. Well, Brooklyn Brewery, our beers are available mostly in the East, though we have, of the United States. We have gotten a bit, further out west these days, but we're only in about 26 states, which often surprises people. And then Europe and the rest of the world are also major markets for us. So we are by far the top craft beer exporter in the country. It is about 30% of our business. And it is something that we have pursued over time. I mean, I fell in love with beer in Europe. The Ottaway family, who are the principal owners of the brewery and the general manager and head of sales, they grew up in Africa and they are half Italian. Steve Hindy, our founder, fell in love with beer while working in the Middle East, where all the reporters were making their own homebrewed beers. So, we have a very broad perspective on the world because we've all lived in other parts of the world and we were always travelers. So by 1989, the year after the brewery opened, we were already selling beer in Japan. And I think the secret to our success in export has been we show up. It's not like a cutesy thing where we sell a few cases in Denmark, or oh look, we sell a few cases in Sweden. I mean, this year I'll probably be in Sweden about 6 times. I'm going next week.
Yeah.
When we get there, everybody knows us. And I think that that's important. If you want people to really understand who you are and what you're doing, you've got to show up.
Yeah.
If you're just going to go there on vacation for a few days, well, that's a hobby. That's not serious.
That's right.
Oh, I mean, any number of things. I mean, Brooklyn lager in places that we don't send, lager over in tankers, but we'll run even pretty short runs of all sorts of things. A couple of years ago, we sent, I think our first KeyKeg run was over 100 of them that we sent to the Great Australian Beer Spectacular, which is like their version of the Great American Beer Festival. Yeah. And we made a version of our Grand Cru and we sent, we filled 100 KeyKegs. That was our first real run, and sent them all the way to Australia, which is quite a long trip, and it was the most popular beer of the festival. It held up very, very well. I think the KeyKeg, the most important thing about it, is that, it is a sustainable package. The fact that it is, pretty easily recyclable. The fact that it's a one-way package which doesn't have an unreasonable cost. And also the fact that, it's proven itself to be a good barrier to things that spoil beer, light and oxygen, in particular. So one of our early worries was about permeability, of oxygen through the various barriers. But we've seen that that the pickup of oxygen in the package is extremely low. We were very pleased recently when we went last November, and we did an event in Leeds, England. And we saw that they were, serving our session IPA called Scorcher. Well, that had been a special release that came out in May. So we knew the beer was 6 months old, in these KeyKegs. And we were like, beer's only 4.5%, had a big hop aroma. We went rushing over to check the beer out because we were like, we're going to have to take this off. And to our great surprise, it was a little bit hazy, but it tasted exactly like itself. So I have to say, we were pretty impressed. That would not really have been possible, if the oxygen had been getting in there over time. You don't really expect a brightly hopped, relatively light beer to hold up for 6 months in the keg. So we've been pleased by that. And it gives us good confidence, that when we put that that beer on a boat, that if the boat is treated correctly and the containers go in the right direction and all the other things about logistics, that the beer at least is going to be fine. I think beer will take a bigger part from wine on the table. I think that beer used to be on the table a long time ago, and was kicked off the table basically when it became not worth drinking. If every wine tasted like the cheapest jug wine that you could get, acceptable but not even vaguely interesting, then people wouldn't be drinking wine in restaurants. They would be drinking something else. They're drinking wine because it's delicious. Now that beer is also delicious and has a much wider range of flavor than wine does, and a much more culinary set of flavors than wine does, I think that you're going to see it more and more.